Deep beneath the scorching sands of Egypt lies a hidden world, forgotten by time. A cave so vast it could swallow pyramids whole. And at its entrance, a shattered stone foot the size of a house. But what ancient colossus did it once belong to? And why was it buried beneath the earth? Was it destroyed in a forgotten cataclysm? Or hidden to conceal a terrifying truth? What lies beneath may rewrite everything we know about the gods, and reveal that the true rulers of Egypt were not human at all. They say the desert hides many secrets, but few are prepared for what was discovered 170 feet beneath the earth, just outside of Luxor, where a team of archaeologists stumbled across a narrow shaft that led to something no one could explain: a natural cave system, wider than any previously known in Egypt, with ceilings taller than the temples of Karnak and air that had not been breathed in over 4,000 years. And there at the cave's entrance rested the broken stone foot of a statue, so massive it dwarfed the great Sphinx and matched no known sculpture from any Egyptian dynasty. The statue's foot was cracked and worn, but still preserved the faded lines of craftsmanship more advanced than even the artisans of Ramses could dream, and the toes of the foot each large enough for a man to sit upon bore symbols no scribe could read, not in hieroglyphs, not in Demotic, not even in Coptic or Greek. They were symbols of something older, something perhaps pre-dynastic or not of this world at all. The cave discovery was never meant to be made public, but word leaked through a young assistant who took a photo and posted it briefly online before it was scrubbed, and he disappeared, vanishing completely from his apartment in Cairo, leaving behind only his laptop and a notebook that contained a phrase he had scrawled again and again: beneath the sands the watchers dream. Beneath the sands the watchers dream. The cave was sealed days later by government order, officially due to safety concerns, unofficially to hide what was beneath the shattered foot of the colossus. For behind it, deeper inside the cave, strange walls, not of natural stone, were found, walls smooth and seamless, as if poured, not carved, covered in a black substance that shimmered in the torchlight, and humming with a faint vibration that set the bones of every man who touched it on edge. One worker who did dare to lean too close reported hearing a voice not in words, but a deep hum that filled his skull and showed him visions of a burning sky and giants with golden eyes descending from fire. The man fled and never returned, and when they found him, he had drawn in charcoal hundreds of figures falling from the sky, surrounded by rings and flames. This was no ordinary cave. This was no ordinary ruin. This was something older than the pharaohs, something the ancients feared, something they may have built their entire religion to protect against. For the cracked stone foot bore one final marking hidden beneath its heel, a circle with 3 stars and a serpent biting its tail, a symbol that appears only once in all Egyptian history, in a forbidden text attributed to the high priest of Thoth, which claimed that before the first pharaoh there was another kingdom, one not of man, but of gods, who walked upright and burned with fire, and whose statues were not carved but grown. And this cave, this statue, this presence buried beneath millennia of sand, might just be the only evidence left of that forgotten time, the age before kings, the age before Egypt itself. Hey guys, tonight we journey deep into the Egyptian desert, far from the familiar golden pyramids and the tourist-filled temples of Luxor. We're chasing a whisper, a rumor of something impossible buried beneath the shifting sands, a place that defies history, a place that shouldn't exist. The air is still and hot, and the only sound is the crunch of sand beneath your boots as you approach a strange shadow on the horizon. The desert doesn't give up its secrets easily, and it definitely doesn't offer a return ticket. So you probably won't survive this one, let's be honest. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. I always love to see how far these stories travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey. Together the sun beats down with a weight that feels personal, a physical pressure on your shoulders and the back of your neck. The air shimmers above the dunes, creating watery illusions that dance and disappear just as you focus on them. Your GPS gave up hours ago, a casualty of the magnetic anomalies in the rock, and a general protest against being this far from a decent cell tower. You're navigating by crumpled maps and sun-bleached photographs from a disgraced Archaeologists' journal from the 1920s. A man who was laughed out of Cairo for his wild theories about a pre-dynastic civilization of giants. The heat makes your thoughts slow and syrupy, and you wonder for the 10th time today if this whole expedition is just a sun-dazed fever dream. You wipe sweat from your brow, feeling the grit of sand stick to your skin. It's a far cry from the exotic image of ancient Egypt, where nobles applied crocodile dung sunscreen and sailed leisurely down the Nile. This is the raw, unforgiving heart of the land, the part that chews up explorers and spits out bones. You trudge onward, following the curve of a massive rock outcrop, a feature the old maps called the Serpent Spine. And for weeks it has been your only reliable landmark. According to the journal, somewhere near the serpent's tail, there should be an anomaly, something that doesn't belong. Your water is tasting of warm plastic, and your resolve is beginning to fray just as the sun begins its slow descent, painting the sky in strokes of orange and bruised purple. This is the golden hour, the time when shadows stretch and secrets emerge from their daytime hiding places. And that's when you see it. It isn't dramatic at first, just a patch of rock that seems too dark, too sharp against the soft, wind-worn sandstone around it. As you get closer, the wrongness of it becomes more apparent. The rocks here are not arranged by the gentle chaos of erosion or geological upheaval. They are stacked. The lines are too clean, the angles too deliberate, like the work of a child playing with blocks the size of small cars. It's a masterful piece of camouflage, designed to be overlooked, to blend into the landscape as just another jumble of desert stone. Historians still argue whether the extensive quarrying operations at sites like Aswan were solely for surface monuments, or if they had something more. And looking at this, you start to lean toward the latter. This isn't a tomb. This isn't a temple. It feels like a doorway trying very hard not to be found. You run a hand over the surface of one of the colossal blocks. The stone is cool to the touch, a stark contrast to the baked rock around it. A faint draft of cold air ghosts across your knuckles, smelling of deep earth and millennia of stillness. The ancient Egyptians had a complex vision of the underworld, due to a realm of caverns and gates that the soul had to navigate after death. And you can't shake the feeling that you've stumbled upon a literal entrance to that mythical place. You follow the seams between the giant blocks, tracing them with your gloved finger until you find it, a hairline cracked near the base, almost completely obscured by drifted sand. It's a perfect vertical line, too perfect for nature. You call over your small team, and together you begin to dig, clearing away the sand and loose scree with hands and small shovels. The work is grueling, and your muscles ache in protest. But with every scoop of sand, the crack widens, revealing not solid rock behind it, but a sliver of absolute blackness. As the last rays of sunlight vanish below the horizon, the desert temperature plummets, and you flick on your headlamp. The beam cuts a bright white cone into the darkness. It doesn't hit a back wall. It doesn't reflect off anything. It's just swallowed by the void. The opening is real, a silent invitation into the unknown, a place that has waited in the dark while empires rose and fell on the surface, a place that has no business being here at all. You peer into the opening, a perfect slice of night that has somehow fallen to earth and settled beneath the rock. The cold air continues to bleed out of it, a steady exhalation that carries the scent of stone and time and something else, something loamy and metallic that you can't quite place. There's no grand inscription over the entrance, no helpful "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." To set the mood, just a silent dare. You click your tongue, and the sound is immediately swallowed by the immense emptiness beyond this, is at the point of no return. The stars are beginning to pop into existence in the deep indigo sky above a familiar celestial map that feels a million miles away from the subterranean world you're about to enter. You check your harness one last time, pulling the straps tight against your chest. The plan is simple: rappel down, secure a baseline, then begin a systematic survey. It sounds so professional, so routine, a comforting set of procedures for a situation that is anything but your safety. Briefing back in Cairo covered scorpions, dehydration, and political instability. It did not, however, cover discovering a gateway to the Earth's core. Your partner gives you a thumbs up, his face illuminated by his own headlamp, a floating mask in the darkness. You nod back, take a deep breath of the rapidly cooling desert air, and step across the threshold. The transition is instantaneous. One moment you are in the Egyptian desert, the next you are nowhere. The wind ceases, the ambient sounds of the night vanish, the temperature drops by at least 20 degrees, forcing a shiver that has nothing to do with fear and everything to do with simple thermodynamics. The air is thick and still, so profoundly silent that you can hear the hum of the battery pack for your headlamp, a sound you've never noticed before. You are standing on a wide ledge of rock that slopes steeply downward into the gloom. Your light beam, which seemed so powerful just moments ago, now feels pitiful and inadequate. It lances out into the oppressive black, but finds nothing to illuminate. There's no far wall, no ceiling, no floor, just an endless void. You sweep the beam left and right, up and down, and it never connects. It just fades into the distance, as if you're pointing a laser pen at the night sky. The scale is wrong. It's so fundamentally wrong that your brain struggles to process the sensory input. It feels like you've walked into a cathedral built for gods the size of mountains. You begin your descent, the rope slithering silently through your belay device. The rock face is surprisingly smooth, almost polished in places, and you find unnervingly regular handholds that seem almost man-made. As you go deeper, the darkness becomes a physical presence, a heavy blanket that muffles thought and sound. The only noise is the soft scrape of your boots against the rock and the sound of your own breathing, loud and ragged, in your ears. You look up, and the entrance is now a perfect geometric shape, a gray rectangle against the absolute black, shrinking with every meter you descend. It's your only connection to the world you know, and it's getting smaller by the second. The ancient Egyptians were masters of subterranean construction. The Valley of the Kings is a testament to their ability to carve intricate worlds beneath the stone, but those were tombs scaled for humans. This is something else entirely. Historians debate the true purpose of so-called false doors and tombs. Some say they were purely symbolic portals for the deceased spirit. Others believe they served a more practical ritual purpose. You wonder if this entire cave is a kind of false door on a cosmological scale, not for a human soul, but for something much, much larger. You pause your descent, hanging in the silent void, and listen. There's nothing, just the ringing in your own ears. You flick your headlamp to a wider beam, hoping to get a better sense of the space. The light diffuses into a soft glow, revealing the sheer immensity of the cavern. You're in the air is incredibly clear, free of the dust that plagues every other corner of Egypt, which is strange. The lack of air currents means any dust kicked up should hang in the air for centuries, which is probably not great for your long-term respiratory health, but fantastic for archaeology. Ancient tomb builders used castor oil lamps, which were prized for creating very little soot, a quirk that helped preserve the vibrant colors of tomb paintings for millennia. Whatever happened in here happened a very long time ago, and the air has been still ever since you finally reached the bottom of the rope 100 meters down, and your boots touch down not on a flat floor, but on a steep dune of what feels like fine gravelly sand. The ground slopes away from you into yet more darkness. You unclip from the rope, your movements feeling slow and deliberate. In the heavy silence, you're standing at the edge of a vast subterranean chamber, so large that the far walls are beyond the reach of your light, so high that the ceiling is lost in the gloom above. It feels less like a cave and more like an entire landscape that has been buried. The air is cold and carries a faint scent of ozone like the air after a thunderstorm. You take a few tentative steps forward, the gravel crunching under your boots. The sound is shockingly loud. In the stillness, you and your team gather in a small pool of light, your headlamps crisscrossing in the dark, creating dancing shadows that play tricks on your eyes. You are a tiny island of warmth and life in an ocean of ancient cold nothingness. You are trespassers in a place that has forgotten the sun. You begin a standard radial search pattern, moving out from your landing point in a slow expanding circle. Your boots sink into the fine black sand with each step, a substance that feels more like crushed basalt than typical desert sand. It's strangely uniform without the usual mix of pebbles and organic debris. The ground continues to slope downward, gently leading you deeper into the heart of the cavern. The silence presses in again, a profound absence of sound that makes the world feel unreal. Your senses are on high alert, straining to catch any hint of movement or change in the oppressive stillness. It's a silence that feels ancient and watchful, as if the very rock around you is holding its breath. The air remains cold and metallic, and you pull the collar of your jacket tighter around your neck. You sweep your headlamp back and forth in a steady rhythm, a pendulum of light against an eternity of darkness. The beam glides over the endless floor of black sand, revealing nothing but more of the same. It's a monotonous landscape, a desert within the earth, and a feeling of deep unease begins to settle in your stomach. This place is empty, too empty. It feels scrubbed clean, devoid of the usual detritus of time. You're looking for artifacts, tools, pottery, anything that might give you a clue about who made this place and why. But there is nothing, just sand and silence, and the colossal scale of the unseen room around you. Then your light catches something. It's a flicker of a different color, a shape that isn't the gentle curve of a sandy floor. You stop dead in your tracks, holding your breath, and focus the beam. It's a long way off. At the very edge of your light's reach, a pale shape rising from the black sand like a misplaced iceberg in a sea of ink. You signal to the others with a hand gesture, and you all begin to move towards it together, your headlamps now converging on the single distant object. A sense of scale in this place is deceptive, and what looked to be a short walk turns into a long, slow trudge. The shape grows larger with every step, its details slowly resolving out of the gloom. At first, you think it's a natural rock formation, a pillar of lighter stone left behind by some ancient geological process, but as you get closer, the shape becomes more defined, more deliberate. The curves are too smooth, the form too familiar. Your heart starts to beat a little faster, a frantic drum against the silent backdrop of the cave. It's not rock, it's carved, it's a sculpture, and it is enormous. You are now close enough to see the details, and your mind simply refuses to process what you are seeing. For a long moment, your brain cycles through a dozen different possibilities. A trick of the light, a strange mineral deposit, pareidolia playing tricks on you in the stressful environment, but the evidence is undeniable, laid bare in the stark white light of your lamp. You are standing at the base of 2 feet, 2 colossal human feet, carved from a single piece of pale limestone or marble. They stand side by side, planted firmly on the unseen bedrock beneath the black sand, as if their owner had just paused mid-stride a moment ago. A billion moments ago. They are perfect in their anatomical detail, the gentle arch of the instep, the distinct shape of the 5 toes, the subtle bulge of the ankle bones, except they are the size of delivery vans. Each toe is as long as you are tall. The sheer impossibility of it is staggering. You think of the famous colossi of Memnon, which stand near Luxor, monolithic statues of Amenhotep III that are considered marvels of ancient engineering. They are about 60 feet tall and have sat in place for over 3,000 years. But these are in another league entirely. If they were attached to a body of proportional size, the resulting statue would have towered over the colossi of Memnon like a skyscraper over a garden shed. This wasn't built by a king to honor himself. This was built to depict a god, or something that thought it was a god. You walk slowly around the base of the right foot, your headlamp beam crawling up its surface. The stone is cracked and weathered, but less than you would expect for its age. The lines are still crisp, the details sharp, the toenails are perfectly rendered, each one the size of a car door. You reach out a hesitant gloved hand and touch the surface. It's cold and smooth, like polished bone, a network of fine cracks, spiderwebs across the stone radiating from a massive fracture near the ankle. The left foot is in a similar state, cracked and ancient, but undeniably a foot. It's a stunning piece of artistry and a mind-bending feat of engineering, and it's here, buried miles under the Egyptian desert, where no one was ever meant to find it. The fringe theories you'd read about online late at night about lost civilizations and ancient giants suddenly feel a little less fringe. A common tidbit of Egyptian lore is that workers were often given daily rations of beer and bread, a form of payment for their labor. You try to imagine the logistics of paying the workforce required for this project. The beer alone would have filled an entire oasis. You and your team stand in a small, silent circle, just staring up at the titanic feet bathed in the lonely glow of your lights. No one speaks for a long time. There are no words that can possibly encapsulate the sheer what the heckness of this moment. You are looking at the feet of a forgotten god, and the silence of its tomb is absolute. You stay there for what feels like an hour, just orbiting the two colossal feet, trying to wrap your head around the reality of them. The initial shock begins to subside, replaced by a wave of pure scientific curiosity and a healthy dose of existential dread. This discovery rewrites every textbook, every historical timeline you've ever studied. It's like finding a fully functional smartphone embedded in a dinosaur fossil. The two things simply cannot coexist in the same version of reality. Yet here, there you decide a closer examination is needed. You instruct your partner to set up wide-angle photographic equipment to try and capture the sheer scale of the scene while you approach the right foot. Again, this time with a specific purpose. You want to examine the carvings up close. The surface that looked smooth from a distance is anything but. You run your light over the stone, and now you can see that the entire surface of the feet from the ankle down is covered in a dense lacework of intricate carvings. They are not hieroglyphs, not cuneiform, not any written language you have ever seen. They are geometric patterns, swirling mazes, and complex star-like shapes that seem to shift and writhe in the moving light of your headlamp. They are unlike any decorative style from any known period of Egyptian or even Mesopotamian history. Ancient Egyptian art followed a very strict set of conventions known as canon, a formula that dictated proportions and poses for millennia. This statue's very existence shatters that canon. Its form is naturalistic, its decoration abstract in a way that feels almost modern. You pull out a small digital microscope from your pack, a portable device you use for analyzing pottery shards and pigment samples, and press it against the stone. The magnified view fills the small screen, revealing that the lines are impossibly fine, etched into the hard stone with a precision that suggests a tool far more advanced than the simple copper chisel. Historians still argue whether the Egyptians had access to iron tools during the Old Kingdom, with most evidence suggesting they primarily used copper and stone. You're looking at craftsmanship that would be difficult to replicate today with laser cutting technology, let alone with the tools we know the ancients possessed. The lines are clean and sharp, without any of the telltale chattermarks or imperfections of hand carving. It's as if the patterns were drawn onto the stone with a pen, and the stone itself simply parted ways along the lines. You move the microscope across a small patch of the ankle and find something else. Embedded within the carvings are small polished stones that seem to drink the light from your lamp. They are a deep black, a stark contrast to the pale limestone, and they don't reflect the light. They absorb it, making them seem like tiny holes in reality. You gently pry at one with the tip of a sampling knife. It's set perfectly into the stone, seamless and smooth. You wonder if it's obsidian, but it lacks the glassy sheen. It's something else, something wholly unfamiliar. Your gaze drifts upwards along the massive shin which rises into the darkness. Like the pillar of a bridge, the statue was clearly standing upright, its pose one of calm authority. But then you notice the damage more clearly. The huge crack at the ankle is a catastrophic failure. The stone is splintered and shattered, and a huge wedge-shaped piece is missing, as if it was struck by an immense force. You follow the crack upwards and see that it spirals around the leg, disappearing into the gloom. Above, the left foot is similarly damaged, but the fracture is different. A clean, horizontal break. Just above the ankle, it looks less like an impact and more like it was sheared off cleanly. You walk the perimeter again, this time ignoring the artistry and focusing on the engineering. The feet are not carved from separate blocks and joined together. They are part of a single monolithic base, a solid piece of stone that must extend deep under the sand. This wasn't assembled here. It was carved in place from the living rock of the cavern floor, which makes the whole thing even more impossible. The logistics of carving something this size are one thing, but to do it underground in absolute darkness, that's a whole other level of crazy. The Egyptians were famous for their use of obelisks, single tall pillars of granite that they would quarry and transport, sometimes for hundreds of miles. One unfinished obelisk in Aswan, if completed, would have weighed over 1,200 tons, and its failure to be extracted from the quarry due to a crack is a testament to the immense difficulty of the task. This statue would make that obelisk look like a toothpick. You can't help but let out a small laugh. A puff of white vapor in the cold air. It's a sound of pure disbelief. The absurdity of the situation is almost comical. You're a tiny primate with a flashlight staring at the toes of a forgotten god, wondering how in the world this came to be. You feel an overwhelming urge to find the rest of it, to see the face that belongs to these feet, to understand what this colossal figure was. But as you shine your light up into the impenetrable darkness above, you see nothing but the swirling dust motes dancing in your beam. The rest of the statue is gone. The realization dawns on you slowly, a creeping certainty that is far more disturbing than the initial shock of finding the feet. The statue isn't just broken, it's missing. The vast majority of a sculpture that would have been hundreds, if not thousands of feet tall, has vanished without a trace. You and your team converge again near the colossal ankles, your headlamps painting overlapping circles of light on the pale stone. You all perform the same slow scan, panning your lights upward into the oppressive blackness above. The beams lance into the void, illuminating nothing but a few dancing dust motes before being swallowed whole by the immense vertical space. There's no torso, no arms, no head resting in the darkness above, just empty air. The clean break on the left ankle and the shattering impact on the right suggest a sudden catastrophic event, not slow erosion or a simple structural collapse over millennia. Something happened here, something violent and decisive. It's as if the statue was deliberately and systematically dismantled and removed. You begin a more thorough search of the immediate area around the feet. If a statue of this magnitude had simply fallen over, the debris field would be enormous. There would be mountains of shattered limestone, chunks the size of houses, craters in the cavern floor. It would be a scene of utter geological chaos, but there's nothing. The floor of the cavern is a smooth, gentle slope of fine black sand. There are no other fragments, no rubble, no debris of any kind, just the two isolated feet planted in the ground, as if they were the only part that was ever created. This is a crime scene. You realize, an ancient cosmic crime scene, and you've just stumbled upon the chalk outline. The absence of the body is more profound than its presence ever could have. Then it creates a vacuum, a question that hangs in the cold, silent air so heavily you can almost feel its weight. Where did it go? Who could possibly move pieces of stone that weigh thousands of tons? And why would they do it? The logistical challenges are mind-boggling. Transporting even a small obelisk was a major undertaking for the ancient Egyptians, requiring immense manpower. Canals, sledges, and rollers to move the torso of this statue. You would need technology that rivals or even surpasses our own. You think about the mainstream historical fact that the Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years, a testament to its builder's ambition. This subterranean colossus, if it was ever whole, would have dwarfed the Great Pyramid. It would have been the single greatest engineering project in human history, and it has been utterly erased from that history. leaving only its footprints behind you kick at. The black sand with the toe of your boot, watching the grains cascade down the gentle slope. It's so uniform, so clean. It's almost like this entire area was tidied up after the main event swept clean of all evidence, except for the two things they couldn't or wouldn't take to feet. You wonder if they were left behind as a message of warning, or perhaps simply because they were too well anchored to the bedrock to be easily removed. Historians still argue about the nature of Akhenaten's religious revolution, where he tried to replace the entire Egyptian pantheon with a single sun god. The Aten, after his death, his successors attempted to erase him from history, dismantling his temples and chiseling his name from monuments. It was a systematic effort to make it as if he never existed. This feels like that, but on a scale that makes Akhenaten's persecution look like a minor squabble. The silence in the cavern seems to deepen as you contemplate this. The emptiness feels intentional now, not just a feature of the cave, but a statement in itself. You're standing in a place defined by a spectacular absence, a void where something magnificent once stood and was deliberately removed. The fringe tidbit you once read about mysterious disappearances of entire ancient armies, like the lost legion of Varus or the army of Cambyses, suddenly feels chillingly relevant. Those were thousands of men. This is thousands of tons of stone, a far more permanent thing to lose. You feel a sudden chill that has nothing to do with the temperature of the cave. It's the cold touch of a mystery so profound it feels sacred and forbidden. You are not supposed to be here. You are not supposed to know that this statue ever existed. Its destroyers went to unimaginable lengths to ensure its oblivion, and by finding its last remnants, you have desecrated their work. You have stumbled upon a secret that has been kept for an epoch, a secret that someone or something went to a great deal of trouble to bury deep beneath the earth. And you have no idea who they were, or if they're still around. You look back at the entrance, a tiny speck of gray. Far above you, it feels a million miles away, a gateway to a world that seems simple and sane compared to the impossible reality you've uncovered. The journey down was one of discovery, but the thought of the journey back up now carries a new weight, the weight of this impossible knowledge. You make the decision to expand the search radius. The immediate vicinity of the feet has yielded nothing but the black sand, so you must push further out into the cavern. Your team splits up, fanning out in 3 different directions, maintaining radio contact as you move deeper into the oppressive darkness. The plan is to walk in a straight line for 1 hour, paying close attention to any changes in the terrain or any objects on the floor before returning to the feet as a central base point. The loneliness sets in almost immediately as the headlamps of your companions shrink into bouncing pinpricks of light behind you. You are once again alone in the immense silent dark. The only sound is the rhythmic crunch, crunch, crunch of your boots on the sand, a sound that seems to get louder and more intrusive as every other sensory input is stripped away. You sweep your light from side to side, a monotonous but necessary task. The beam reveals the same featureless landscape of gently sloping black sand over and over again. It's like walking on the bottom of a dead ocean, an endless plain of fine silt. The scale of the cavern continues to defy your expectations. After walking for what feels like a kilometer, the walls of the cavern are still nowhere in sight. The ceiling is still lost in the gloom. Above you are a tiny speck of life crawling across a landscape built for giants. The air remains cold and still, without even a hint of a breeze. You wonder about the geology of this place, how a cavern of this size could possibly remain stable without collapsing under the weight of the desert above. It has to be an anomaly, a freak of nature, or something else entirely not natural at all. You keep walking, your mind a mix of focus and wandering thoughts. You think about the ancient Egyptian concept of Ma'at, the cosmic principle of order, truth, and justice. A violation of Ma'at was a disruption of the very fabric of creation, an act that could bring about chaos and destruction. The destruction of the statue whose feet you just discovered feels like a violation of Ma'at on an unimaginable scale. A Purposeful act of cosmic vandalism. You check your watch. 45 minutes have passed. You have walked for miles into the darkness and found nothing, absolutely nothing. It's a frustrating and deeply unsettling experience. The lack of features makes it difficult to judge distance or direction, and a primal fear of being lost begins to creep into the edges of your professional composure. You rely on your compass and the steady discipline of your training to keep moving in a straight line. The black sand seems to absorb the light from your headlamp, making the shadows deeper and the darkness more profound. It's a tiring and mentally draining process, staring into the void looking for something that isn't there. You remember reading about the psychological effects of sensory deprivation, how the mind starts to create its own stimuli when none are available. You start to see fleeting shapes in the periphery of your vision, dark flitting movements that vanish the moment you turn your head to look directly at them. They're just tricks of the light and an overactive imagination, you tell yourself, but the feeling of being watched intensifies just as you are about to turn back, convinced that this entire cavern is a sterile, empty void. Your light beam passes over something different. It's not a big discovery, not another piece of the statue, but it's a change. It's a patch of ground where the smooth black sand gives way to a jumble of broken rock and what looks like plaster dust. You kneel down and run your glove over the surface. This is debris. It's the kind of rubble you'd expect to find at a construction site or a demolition zone. Small chunks of limestone, shattered pottery, and splinters of what might be petrified. Would you pick up a piece of the limestone? It's the same pale color as the giant feet. You shine your light around this small debris field. It's not large, maybe 10 meters across a small island of chaos in the sea of perfect sand. It's as if a single wheelbarrow of trash was dumped here and then abandoned. It's not enough. It's nowhere near the amount of rubble that the missing statue should have produced, but it's something. It's the first clue you've found since the feat. It proves that there was activity here other than the carving of the statue itself. There was building, there was crafting, and there was breaking. You sift through the dust and find a small shard of clay pottery. It's thick and crudely made, not the elegant pottery of the dynastic Egyptians, but something much more primitive. On its surface is a single painted symbol, a circle with a dot in the center, the ancient symbol for the sun god Ra, which is a comforting and familiar sign in this alien environment. Or is it the symbol was also used in alchemy and various other mystical traditions to represent gold or the self? Perhaps it wasn't Ra at all, but something else, something older. You carefully bag the shard, a tiny piece of tangible evidence in a place of overwhelming absences. Your radio crackles to life, a burst of static that makes you jump. One of your team members reports a similar finding, a small isolated patch of debris miles away in another direction. The third team member reports nothing but endless sand. It seems the cavern isn't entirely sterile. It has these strange little pockets of evidence, these islands of history floating in the vast emptiness. What this means you don't know, but it's a new mystery to solve. The hour is up. You turn and begin the long walk back to the rendezvous point. The image of the small debris field burned into your mind. It's not the grand discovery you were hoping for, but it's a start. It's a breadcrumb in the darkness, and you are determined to follow it wherever it leads. You regroup with your team at the base of the colossal feat, sharing your findings. The discovery of small isolated debris fields is both exciting and perplexing. It suggests a level of activity beyond the central statue, but the distribution is strange and seemingly random. It's as if small localized events took place scattered across the vast cavern floor, each leaving behind a tiny footprint of its existence. You decide to investigate the most promising of these debris fields, the one you discovered, which seemed to contain more varied material. You all make the long trek back across the featureless sand, your headlamps creating a small bubble of shared light in the overwhelming darkness. Arriving at the small island of rubble again, you begin a more systematic excavation and analysis. This time you set up portable floodlights, casting a wider, more stable glow over the area and revealing more detail than your headlamps alone could manage. The debris is a curious mix of materials. There are chunks of the same pale limestone from the statue, but also fragments of granite, basalt, and even what Looks like hardened mud brick, a common building material in ancient Egypt. Used for everything from peasant homes to royal fortresses, it's a geological and archaeological grab bag, suggesting that multiple projects were happening concurrently, or that this was a dumping ground for various activities from all over the cavern. As you sift through the rubble, you notice a strange pattern. The larger pieces of rock are all on the periphery of the debris field, while the center is composed of finer dust and smaller fragments. It's as if something exploded here, or a structure collapsed inward upon itself. You're on your hands and knees brushing away dust from a large piece of limestone. When your fingers find a straight edge, it's too perfect to be a natural break. You brush away more dust and reveal a corner, a perfect 90-degree angle. You clear more and more debris, and the shape begins to reveal itself. It's a large block of dressed stone, a hewn slab that was clearly intended to be part of a structure, and it's sitting on top of a section of floor that is not sand but paved stone. You and your team work together to heave the heavy block aside. It moves with a deep grinding sound that echoes slightly in the vastness of the cavern beneath. It is a perfectly square section of stone flooring made of dark basalt tiles, laid with incredible precision. The tiles are cool and smooth to the touch, a stark contrast to the gritty sand and rough debris. You found a piece of architecture, a building hidden beneath the rubble. You clear the entire debris field, revealing a small paved square about 10 feet by 10 feet. In the center of the square is a dark line, a seam that suggests a trapdoor or a covered opening. You pry at it with a crowbar, and with a grating sound, a heavy stone slab lifts up, revealing not a room or a passage, but more sand, a deep deposit of the same black sand that covers the rest of the cavern floor. It's a dead and a frustrating moment of anticlimax. You all stand back, looking at the paved square and the sand-filled pit, feeling a sense of disappointment. This was your best lead, and it has led nowhere. But then one of your team members, who had been examining the rock wall nearest the debris field, calls out, her voice sharp with excitement. You turn your lights to where she's pointing, at the base of the cavern wall, which is only visible from this one specific spot, a place you would never have found if not for the strange island of rubble. From a distance, it looks like a normal rock face, a curtain of stone that blends into the shadows. But up close, it's different. The rock here is fractured and crumbled in a way that looks unnatural, not like a geological feature, but like a deliberate wall of loosely piled rock, a camouflage designed to hide something. You approach the wall and can feel a faint draft of air coming from between the cracks, cold and smelling of damp earth and something else, a faint organic scent like decaying leaves. It's different from the sterile metallic air of the main cavern. This is the telltale sign of a separate chamber or tunnel system with a different air circulation. You start pulling away the loose rocks. They come away easily, revealing a dark opening behind them. It's not a large grand entrance, but a low narrow tunnel, just big enough for one person to crawl through. It is clearly man-made. The walls are too smooth, the arch of the ceiling too regular. This wasn't a natural cave that was discovered. It was carved with purpose. A fringe theory that you've always found fascinating is the idea of a hall of records, a mythical library of ancient knowledge rumored to be hidden in a chamber near the Sphinx. While mainstream Egyptology dismisses this as fantasy, you can't help but wonder if you found something similar, a hidden repository of secrets intentionally concealed behind a false wall. The ancient Egyptians were masters of concealment. Their tombs are full of false passages and hidden chambers designed to thwart tomb robbers. You've just found another layer to the mystery, a secret hidden within a secret. The great cavern with the giant feet was just the antechamber, the public space, and the real secrets lie deeper within this narrow, dark tunnel. You shine your light into the opening. The beam is quickly swallowed by the darkness. It is a descent into the unknown, a journey into an even more profound level of mystery. You look back at the vast empty space of the main cavern, at the two impossible feet standing silently in the distance. and you realize you've only just scratched the surface. The real story begins here, in this tight, dark hole in the wall. The decision to enter the tunnel is not made lightly. The opening is claustrophobically small, and you have no idea where it leads, how long it is, or if the air inside is even safe. You run a full atmospheric check with your handheld sensor. The results are surprisingly good. Normal oxygen and nitrogen levels with a slightly elevated carbon dioxide reading, but nothing dangerous. The faint organic smell persists, a scent of wet soil and something vaguely fungal. You decide to go in one at a time, tethered by a safety line, maintaining constant radio contact. The first person to go is your most experienced caver, a small, wiry woman who seems completely unfazed by the tight space. You watch as she wriggles into the opening, her headlamp disappearing into the absolute blackness. Her voice crackles over the radio, a calm and steady report. The tunnel is narrow but consistent. The walls are smooth, almost polished, and the floor is level. It descends at a gentle but steady angle, going deeper into the earth. After about 50 meters, she reports that the tunnel opens into a small chamber where the team can regroup. You're next. You take a deep breath, steel your nerves, and get down on your hands and knees. The transition from the immense open space of the great cavern to the tight confines of the tunnel is jarring and immediate. The rock presses in on all sides, and you have to move forward in a low army crawl, your pack scraping against the ceiling. The air is instantly different, thicker and damper, and the silence is even more profound than before. In the large cavern, the silence was expansive, a feature of the immense space. Here it is compressive, a heavy blanket that smothers you. The only sound is the scrape of your own clothes against the stone, and the sound of your breathing, which seems unnaturally loud in your ears. You try not to think about the millions of tons of rock above you, or the fact that this tunnel has been sealed for thousands of years. You focus on the small circle of light cast by your headlamp on the floor in front of you, and the reassuring tug of the safety line behind you. The smooth walls of the tunnel glide past your shoulders. They are cool and slightly damp to the touch. You run your glove over the surface, and it feels like polished granite. There are no tool marks, no inscriptions, no features of any kind, just a perfectly smooth tube of rock. This level of precision in tunnel boring is remarkable. The Egyptians were known for their quarry tunnels, but those were typically rough-hewn functional affairs, not polished corridors. Like this, you start to hear a strange sound, a faint whisper that seems to come from the air itself. It's not a voice, it's more like the sound of wind whistling through a narrow gap. But there is no wind in this sealed tunnel. The sound rises and falls in an unnerving cadence, a soft sibilant hiss that seems to echo the rhythm of your own breathing. You stop for a moment and listen intently. The sound continues, a constant shushing whisper that seems to be coming from ahead of you. It's a deeply unsettling sound in this place of absolute stillness. A quirky fringe tidbit that has always amused you is the discovery of the curse of the pharaohs, a media invention from the 1920s to explain the deaths of some members of Howard Carter's team after opening Tutankhamun's tomb. Most of those deaths were easily explained by natural causes, but the myth persists. You can't help but feel a sliver of that superstitious dread now, as if the whispering sound is a kind of warning, a spectral guardian of this forbidden place. You press on the whispering sound, growing slightly louder. As you crawl deeper into the earth, the tunnel begins to curve gently to the right, and you see a faint glow ahead, the light from your colleague's headlamp waiting in the small chamber. You emerge from the narrow crawl space into a circular room about 20 feet in diameter. The walls are just as smooth and featureless as the tunnel, and the ceiling is a perfect dome. The whispering sound is louder here, a constant soft hiss that seems to come from all directions at once. It's a phenomenon known as acoustic resonance, where the specific shape of a room can amplify certain frequencies, creating a whispering gallery effect. The builders of this place either understood acoustics with a sophistication far beyond their time, or they created this effect by accident. Either way, the result is unnerving. Every tiny sound you make, the scuff of a boot, the rustle of your jacket, is picked up and transformed into a sibilant whisper that slides around the curved walls. It feels like the room is alive and constantly murmuring, just at the edge of your hearing, as the rest of your team joins you in the chamber. The collected whispers of your movements create a chorus of soft hissing sounds. A ghostly welcome to this new level of the complex. You stand together in the center of the room, your headlamps scanning the smooth black walls, looking for the continuation of the passage. You find it directly opposite the entrance. You just came from another low, narrow tunnel identical to the first. The whispers seem to be beckoning you forward, inviting you deeper into the labyrinth. You feel a growing sense of trepidation, a feeling that you are intruders in a sacred and deeply strange place, a place that was designed to test or perhaps to filter those who enter it. You are no longer just explorers. You are pilgrims on a path laid out by an unknown intelligence, and the path leads ever downward into the whispering darkness. You continue into the second tunnel, a near-identical twin to the first. It's another long, uncomfortable crawl through a perfectly smooth tube of rock. The whispering effect from the circular chamber fades behind you, replaced once again by the compressive silence and the intimate sounds of your own struggle. The air grows even more damp, and the organic fungal scent becomes stronger, a rich, loamy smell, like a forest floor after a heavy rain. It's a strange and unexpected scent to find this deep underground, far from any known source of life. You crawl for what feels like an eternity, your knees and elbows aching from the constant pressure on the hard stone. The monotony of the journey is broken only by the rhythmic scrape, slide, scrape of your movement. You are completely cut off from the world, now a fragile chain of human beings moving through the deep intestines of the earth. The darkness is absolute, so complete that if you were to turn off your headlamp, you would be unable to tell if your eyes were open or closed. After another 100 meters of crawling, the tunnel finally begins to change. It widens slightly, allowing you to get into a low crouch, and then it opens up abruptly, not into another small chamber, but into a space so vast it rivals the first great cavern you discovered. You step out of the tunnel onto a wide stone ledge, and the sheer scale of the new chamber takes your breath away. Your headlamp beam lances out into the darkness, and this time it finds things to illuminate. The chamber is immense, a colossal subterranean dome that dwarfs any cathedral ever built. But unlike the first cavern, which was sterile and empty, this one is full. It is a workshop, a colossal industrial space from a forgotten age. The floor of the chamber far below your ledge is a chaotic jumble of massive stone blocks in various states of completion. Some are rough-hewn, freshly quarried from the cavern walls. Others are cut into perfect geometric shapes, cubes, spheres, and immense cylinders. There are half-finished pillars and what look like giant stone gears littering the landscape, like the abandoned toys of a giant child. The entire chamber is a scene of arrested industry, a project abandoned mid-task. You sweep your light across the chamber and see evidence of incredible engineering. There are raised causeways and ramps connecting different sections of the workshop. There are deep pits and trenches, and what look like dry docking bays for moving colossal objects. The sheer ambition on display is staggering. This was a place of immense creation, a factory for gods. You make your way down from the ledge via a wide staircase carved into the rock face. The steps are uncomfortably large, sized for beings much taller than you, and you have to take them one at a time, like a child navigating an adult staircase. As you descend, the fungal smell becomes almost overpowering, and you see the source for the first time. Patches of a strange phosphorescent fungus grow in sheltered corners of the chamber, casting a faint, eerie green light of their own. It's not bright enough to illuminate the whole space, but it creates pools of ghostly light that add to the surreal atmosphere of the place. You reach the floor of the workshop, and the scale of the objects around you becomes even more apparent. You stand next to a perfect cube of black basalt that is 40 feet on each side, its surfaces polished to a mirror shine. Next to it is a huge slab of granite with the faint outline of a colossal hand sketched onto its surface, a project abandoned before the first cut was made. This place is a graveyard of Magnificent Intentions, a museum of what might have been, you think. Of the historical fact that the ancient Egyptians were pioneers of the assembly line process, especially in mass-producing pottery and bricks. This workshop takes that concept to a cosmological extreme. It was a factory for producing a reality, and for some reason the production line was halted. You wander through the silent workshop, your footsteps echoing in the vast space. You pass by enormous blocks of stone that have been partially hollowed out, creating what look like giant stone bathtubs or sarcophagi. You see stacks of perfectly cut stone tiles, each the size of a dining table, ready to be laid as flooring somewhere else. You are walking through the backstage of creation, seeing how the magic trick was done, and then you see the tools scattered among the stone blocks are the implements used to shape them, and they are as colossal as everything else in this chamber. There are hammers with heads the size of small cars, chisels that are 20 feet long, and saws with teeth as big as your arm. They are all lying where they were last used, as if the workers simply dropped them and walked away. You approach a massive hammer, its head a solid block of some dark, dense metal, lying next to a half-split stone. The handle, which is made of a dark petrified wood, is thick as a tree trunk and worn smooth from use. No human, or even a team of humans, could have wielded this tool. It was made for and by the same beings who were the intended audience for the colossal statue whose feet you found in the first cavern. Historians and archaeologists still debate the methods used to quarry and move the massive stones of the pyramids and temples. Some theories propose clever use of levers and water-filled locks, while more fringe ideas suggest lost technologies or even acoustic levitation. Looking at the tools in this workshop, you realize that all of those debates are based on a false premise. They all assume human builders. This place had a different workforce altogether. You are standing in the workshop of the giants, the place where they built their world, and you are utterly alone in their silent, abandoned factory. The silence is what is most unnerving. It's the silence of a busy city street, falling quiet in an instant, a silence that speaks of a sudden and total departure. The whispers in the tunnel feel like a distant memory, now replaced by a profound and heavy sense of abandonment. This was not a place that was meant to be quiet. This was a place of noise and industry, and its silence is a testament to a great and terrible tragedy. You spend the next few hours exploring the great workshop chamber, a process that is both exhilarating and deeply humbling. Every new discovery only serves to deepen the mystery and reinforce the impossible scale of the beings who worked here. You move with a sense of reverence, almost like you're walking through a sacred temple, which in a way this is. It is a temple to work, to creation, to the act of shaping reality itself. You approach one of the giant chisels, a massive wedge of dark metal 20 feet long and as thick as your thigh. It's lying on the ground next to a granite block where it was clearly being used to carve a fine decorative line. The edge of the chisel is still impossibly sharp. You run a gloved finger along it and can feel its keenness even through the thick material. You can't identify the metal. It's not iron or bronze. It's a dark gray material with a slight oily sheen that doesn't seem to have a single spot of rust or corrosion on it. Despite being left in this damp environment for what could be millions of years, you tap it with the handle of your rock hammer, and it lets out a clear, high-pitched, ringing sound that sustains for an unerringly long time, a note of pure resonant power that echoes through the vast chamber. This is a material far beyond the metallurgical skills of any known ancient civilization. The mainstream historical view is that the Bronze Age gave way to the Iron Age because iron was more abundant and could be made harder than bronze, leading to better tools and weapons. The material of this chisel is harder and more durable than any modern alloy you know of. It's another piece of impossible technology, another slap in the face to the conventional timeline of history. You move on to a collection of what look like drill bits lying near a massive stone block that has been bored with a series of perfectly circular holes. The holes are 5 feet in diameter and go cleanly through 20 feet of solid basalt. The drill bits are colossal corkscrews of the same dark metal, their tips embedded with what look like black diamonds, each the size of your fist. You examine the inside of one of the holes, and the surface is perfectly smooth, without the spiral cutting marks you would expect from a drill, but it's as if the drill didn't cut the rock, but somehow melted or dissolved it as it passed. Through this wasn't a process of mechanical abrasion. It was something far more advanced, something that operated on a molecular level. You find a saw, a massive blade 30 feet long with jagged teeth that looked like a row of obsidian daggers. It stretched between two huge A-frames, as if ready for use. The blade is impossibly thin, for its length a ribbon of dark metal that should have buckled under its own weight, but it remains perfectly taut. You can only imagine the sound it would have made. Slicing through solid granite, the shriek of a dying mountain. The sheer power required to operate such a tool is staggering. No simple application of human or animal muscle could have moved it. It would have required a machine, an engine of immense power, but there are no signs of any such machinery in the workshop. There are no engines, no power cables, no remnants of any kind of power source. The tools are all designed to be wielded by hands the size of armchairs. You try to imagine the beings who worked here, their immense strength, their incredible endurance. The image that forms in your mind is one from mythology, from the stories of the Titans, the Cyclops, or the Nephilim, beings of immense power, who were said to walk the earth in a time before man. You always considered these stories to be allegorical metaphors for natural forces or the struggles of early civilizations, but standing here in this silent workshop, surrounded by their abandoned tools, the myths suddenly feel like a distorted memory of folk history, of a reality that was once terrifyingly real. A lesser-known tidbit from Egyptian mythology is the story of the god Ptah, who was the patron of craftsmen and architects. He was said to have created the world by thinking it into existence and then speaking its name. You wonder if the beings who built this place were like Ptah, shaping the world not through brute force alone, but through some lost science that bordered on magic, a technology of thought and sound that could shape stone as if it were clay. Historians still argue about the exact purpose of the so-called unfinished obelisk in Aswan, whether it was a failed project or a demonstration piece. You look at the half-finished works in this cavern, and you see a similar story, but on a galactic scale. This wasn't just one failed project. It was the failure of an entire enterprise, a dream of creation that was abandoned for reasons you can't even begin to fathom. The tools are a silent testament to their power and skill, but they are also a monument to their failure. They are a reminder that even for beings of immense power, things can go wrong, projects can be abandoned, and entire civilizations can vanish, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of their ambition. In a dark place beneath the sand, you feel a profound sense of melancholy as you wander through the silent workshop, a sadness for the lost potential and the forgotten creators. This was not a place of war or conflict. It was a place of making, and its silence feels like a tragedy. The weight of the silence and the scale of the mystery press down on you, and you feel an urgent need to find something more, something that explains not just the how, but the why. You need to find a story, a reason, a purpose for all of this, and you have a feeling that the tools themselves won't provide it. You need to find their words, their thoughts, their history, and so you turn your attention from the floor of the workshop to its walls, hoping to find some kind of inscription that can shed light on the great unanswered question, who were they? Your search for inscriptions begins with a slow circumnavigation of the great workshop chamber, hugging the colossal walls. As you move, the walls themselves are a marvel of engineering, not rough-hewn cavern rock, but smooth vertical surfaces that rise up into the darkness like the sides of a skyscraper. It's clear that the chamber itself was shaped and finished with the same care and precision as the objects within it. For a long time you find nothing. The smooth black walls are completely bare, a perfect blank canvas that stretches for what feels like miles. As you walk, you continue to pass by the abandoned works in progress, the silent monoliths, and the giant tools, a landscape of frozen potential. It's a journey through a ghost factory, and the lack of any written record is maddening. It's as if the creators of this place had no need for language, or perhaps their language was the act of creation itself, the shaping of stone. Their only form of expression, then your headlamp beam, catches a different texture on the wall ahead. It's a large section of the wall, maybe 100 feet wide and 50 feet high, that is not smooth black basalt, but a panel of the same pale limestone that the giant feet were carved from. It as if a giant whiteboard was installed in the side of the chamber, and as you get closer you see that it is not blank, it is covered from edge to edge with writing. Your heart leaps. You found it, the Rosetta Stone for this entire impossible place. You and your team converge on the limestone panel, your lights playing over the dense network of carved symbols. The initial feeling of triumph is quickly tempered by a wave of confusion. The symbols are not any form of writing you recognize. They are not the elegant pictorials of Egyptian hieroglyphs, nor the wedge-shaped marks of Sumerian cuneiform. They are something else entirely, something alien and yet hauntingly familiar. They are a complex mix of geometric shapes, flowing lines, and what look like stylized constellations or circuit diagrams. It's a form of writing that seems to be both artistic and mathematical at the same time, and it is utterly impenetrable. You stare at the wall of text, a document that could potentially explain everything, but it might as well be random scratches for all the sense you can make of it. One of your team members is a specialist in ancient languages, and she begins the painstaking process of photographing the entire panel, section by section, creating a high-resolution mosaic that can be studied later. But for now you are left to simply look at the symbols and try to find some pattern, some recognizable form. As you scan the wall of alien text, you begin to notice something strange. Interspersed within the unfamiliar script are symbols that you do recognize, a handful of genuine Egyptian hieroglyphs. It's as if someone has come along after the original text was carved and added footnotes or annotations. In a different language, the hieroglyphs are carved with less skill than the main text. They are rougher, cruder, and seem to be a later addition, a translation, or a commentary on the original script. You focus on one of these hieroglyphic additions. It's a small cluster of symbols carved next to a complex, swirling pattern in the main text. You recognize the symbols for sky and earth and creation, but they are arranged in a sequence that is grammatically incorrect in classical Egyptian, almost like a pidgin or a Creole language. It's a heretical text, a forbidden story. The standard Egyptian creation myth involves the god Adam creating the world from the primordial waters of none. This text seems to be telling a different story, a story that co-opts Egyptian symbols to describe a process that is far more technological, far more alien. It speaks of creation not as a magical act, but as a process of engineering, of shaping and building according to a grand design. You move to another section of the wall where a series of hieroglyphs are carved next to a diagram that looks like a complex star map. The hieroglyphs speak of travelers from the distant stars and shapers of worlds. It's the language of modern science fiction, not ancient mythology, and it's carved into a limestone wall miles beneath the Egyptian desert. A controversial but fascinating fringe theory is the idea of the ancient astronaut, that intelligent extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and were mistaken for gods. This panel seems to be a first-hand account of that very idea, not a misinterpretation by primitive humans, but a direct statement left by the travelers themselves or by those who worked for them. The discovery is staggering. It reframes the entire context of this place. This isn't just a lost human civilization, it's something else entirely, something that doesn't belong to the history of this planet at all. Historians still debate the origins of the Hyksos, a foreign people who ruled Lower Egypt during the Second Intermediate Period. Their origins are still a mystery, and they brought new technologies, like the composite bow and the chariot with them. Looking at this text, you wonder if the great historical mysteries, like the Hyksos or the Sea Peoples, are not just about migrating tribes, but about the faint echoes and aftershocks of a much larger and stranger story, a story of non-human influence on the course of history. You and your team are silent as you absorb the implications of what you're looking at. You have found the history of the builders, and it's a history that shouldn't exist. It's a heretical gospel, a scientific blueprint and a historical record all rolled into one, and it's written in a language that you can only partially understand. It's a tantalizing glimpse into the truth that is far stranger and more complex than you could ever have imagined. You look away from the wall of text, your mind reeling from the overload of information, and your gaze falls on a dark opening at the far end of the workshop chamber, an archway that leads out of the workshop and into another unknown area. It's a path that seems to be indicated by the flow of the text on the wall, as if the story is not just meant to be read, but to be followed. The text is a map, and it's pointing you deeper into the complex, deeper into the story. The journey is not over, it has just taken a sharp turn into the truly unbelievable, leaving the great workshop and its wall of heretical knowledge behind you. Proceed towards the dark archway at the far end of the chamber. The path is clear, a wide causeway that cuts directly through the organized chaos of the abandoned projects. It feels like the main thoroughfare, a road designed for the heavy traffic of whatever beings worked here. As you walk, the immense silence of the workshop seems to press in on you once more, a silence filled with the weight of unspoken questions and the ghosts of unimaginable efforts. The archway is colossal, a perfect parabolic curve of polished black stone that looms over you like the entrance to a tomb. You pass through it, and the environment changes instantly. The air loses its dry, dusty quality and becomes thick with humidity and the rich scent of wet earth. The temperature drops even further, and the faint organic smell you noticed in the tunnels becomes a powerful presence, a smell of life and decay. You are in a new cavern, another immense space, but this one is not a workshop. It is a world of its own, a subterranean ecosystem that has been thriving in the dark for millennia. The floor of this cavern is not stone or sand, but soft, damp soil, and from it grows a forest of pale, ghostly fungi. Some are tall and thin like skeletal trees, others are wide and flat like lily pads, and many of them give off a soft bioluminescent glow, casting the entire cavern in a dim, ethereal twilight of blue and green light. It is a place of breathtaking and alien beauty, a secret garden at the center of the earth. You follow a path that has been worn into the soft soil, a trail that winds its way through the fungal forest. The air is alive with the gentle dripping of water and the soft rustling sounds of things you cannot see. The ground is spongy under your boots, and the humidity is so high that you can see your own breath fogging in the air, even though it is not freezing cold. You've entered a place with its own weather, its own life, its own rules. As you walk, you notice that the path is heading steadily downwards, leading you towards the lowest point of the cavern. The dripping sounds become more frequent, and you begin to hear a new sound, a low, continuous rushing noise, like a distant waterfall. You press on, and the path opens up onto a wide bank of dark, loamy earth, and before you lies a sight that is both impossible and magnificent. A river, a wide, silent river, flows through the heart of the cavern. It's water black and smooth as glass, reflecting the glowing fungi on the ceiling like a star-filled night sky. Is a sunless river, an underground tributary of some vast subterranean water system that has carved its way through the deep rock. It is the source of the humidity, the life, the very existence of this hidden world. You approach the bank of the river and kneel down, dipping your gloved hand into the water. It's shockingly cold and incredibly clear. You can see the smooth black stones of the riverbed far below. The water flows with a steady, silent current, moving from some unknown source to an equally unknown destination. You shine your headlamp into the water, and something moves, a flash of pale white darts away from the light. You hold your beam steady and see them, creatures of the deep, dark river. They are fish, but like no fish you have ever seen. They are long and eel-like with no eyes, and their skin is a ghostly translucent white. You can see their bones and organs through their skin. They are perfectly adapted to a world of eternal darkness, a life without sun or sight. As you watch more of them emerge from the depths, attracted or disturbed by your light, they swim with a slow, languid grace, their pale bodies weaving through the black water like ghostly serpents. You see other forms of life as well, small crustaceans that look like pale white crabs scuttling along the riverbed and strange translucent snails clinging to the rocks. It's a complete ecosystem of food chain that has evolved in total isolation from the world above, feeding on the nutrients washed into the cavern and the energy from the strange glowing fungi. The ancient Egyptians revered the Nile River as the source of all life, a god in its own right. They called Happy. This subterranean river is a dark mirror of the Nile, a source of life for a hidden world, a secret artery of the earth. Historians still argue about the extent of the ancient Egyptians' geographical knowledge, whether they knew of the lands deep in Africa or the vast oceans beyond the Mediterranean. Looking at this river, you realize there was an entire geography, a whole world beneath their feet, that they may or may not have known about, a world that is completely absent from our maps and our histories. You think of the Greek myth of the river Styx, the river that formed the boundary between the world of the living and the underworld, a river that souls had to cross to reach their final resting place. Standing on the bank of this silent black river in a cavern miles beneath the desert, you can't help but feel that you have crossed a similar boundary. You have left the world of the known and entered a realm of myth and impossibility. A fringe belief you once dismissed as pure fantasy was the hollow earth theory, the idea that the earth is not a solid sphere, but contains vast open spaces and even entire civilizations within it. While you don't believe you're in a hollow earth, you have to admit that the reality you've discovered is far stranger than you could have ever imagined. The path continues along the riverbank, leading you deeper into the glowing cavern. Following the silent current of the black water, you have no choice but to follow it to see where this sunless river leads. You have become explorers of a new continent, a continent of darkness and secrets, and your journey is far from over. You follow the winding path along the riverbank for what feels like hours, the soft blue-green glow of the fungal forest, your only illumination. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth, and the constant sound of the flowing water is a soothing background hum, a stark contrast to the oppressive silence. You've grown accustomed to this cavern is alive in a way that the previous chambers were not. It feels less like a tomb and more like a sanctuary, a place of quiet growth and hidden life. The sheer strangeness of the environment has become a new kind of normal. You've accepted the reality of a sunless river and a forest of glowing mushrooms, and are now focused on the practicalities of navigating it. The path is well-worn and easy to follow, suggesting it was used frequently by the former inhabitants of this place. As you walk, you observe the incredible variety of the bioluminescent fungi. They come in all shapes and sizes, from tiny glowing mosses that carpet the ground to colossal mushroom trees that tower 50 feet into the air, their wide caps casting a gentle pulsating light on the scene below. The colors range from a soft sky blue to a vibrant emerald green, creating a constantly shifting palette of cool ethereal light. It's a botanical wonderland, a testament to the tenacity of life. In the most extreme of environments, you wonder about the biology of these fungi, how they generate light, and what they use for energy in this sunless world. It's a question for a biologist, not an archaeologist, but you can't help but be captivated by the sheer beauty of it. You reach a point where the river widens into a large placid lake. The water is perfectly still here, a vast mirror reflecting the glowing forest above, creating the illusion of a starry sky both above and below you. In the center of the lake is a small island, and on that island is a structure, a low building made of the same dark stone as the workshop. You can see a small wooden dock on the near side of the island, and tied to it is a boat, a simple flat-bottomed skiff made of a dark petrified-looking wood. It's an invitation, a clear sign that the path continues across the water. The boat looks ancient, but remarkably well-preserved in the still humid air of the cavern. You and your team approach it cautiously. It's a simple functional craft large enough to carry all of you. There are no oars or paddles, but there's a strange metal pole fixed to the stern with a complex-looking device at its base. It seems to be some kind of rudder or steering mechanism, but there is no obvious means of propulsion. You climb into the boat and it rocks gently on the black water. The wood is hard and smooth under your hands, cool and slightly damp. It feels incredibly dense, as if it were made of stone rather than wood. One of your team members, an engineer, examines the device at the stern. It's a series of interlocking metal rings, and what looks like a large polished crystal held in a metal claw. There are no moving parts, no power source, no obvious function at all. It's another piece of enigmatic technology from the creators of this place. You push off from the bank, and the boat begins to drift out into the silent lake. The current is gentle here, and it slowly begins to pull you towards the island. You are adrift on a silent black lake in a glowing fungal forest miles beneath the earth, and you are heading towards a mysterious building on an island. It's a scene straight out of a fairy tale, a journey to Avalon or the Isle of the Blessed, but it is happening right now, and it is very real. As you glide across the water, you can see the pale shapes of the blind fish swimming in the depths below, their ghostly forms weaving through the darkness. The only sound is the soft lapping of water against the hull of the boat. The mainstream historical fact that ancient Egyptians believed the sun god Ra sailed across the sky in a solar bark by day, and then through the underworld by night in a different vessel seems particularly relevant now. You feel as though you are retracing that mythical journey through the underworld, sailing on a dark river towards an unknown fate. The journey across the lake is short but mesmerizing. The changing patterns of light from the glowing fungi on the shore create a dazzling display on the water surface, a silent light show that has been playing to an empty audience for millennia. You reach the island, and the boat glides smoothly up to the small wooden dock. You tie it off and step onto the solid ground of the island. The island is small, perfectly circular, and dominated by the low stone building in its center. The building is windowless and has a single large open doorway facing the lake. It's made of the same polished black basalt as the walls of the workshop, giving it a somber and imposing feel. You approach the doorway and peer inside. The interior is dark, the light from the fungal forest not penetrating far into the structure. You switch on your headlamp and sweep the beam. Inside the building is a single large circular room, and in the center of the room is a pool of water, a natural spring that seems to be the source of the entire river system. The water in the pool is crystal clear and seems to glow with a faint light of its own. This is the heart of the cavern, the source of its life. A curious tidbit of folklore from many cultures is the idea of a fountain of youth, a mythical spring that grants eternal life or restores youth to those who drink or bathe in its waters. This glowing spring in the heart of a subterranean world feels like the origin of that myth, a real place that inspired 1,000 legends. You have reached a place of power, a source of beginning, and you can feel a palpable energy in the air, a sense of vibrant life and ancient peace. But this is not the end of the journey. Looking past the spring, you see another archway at the back of the building, another passage leading out of this cavern and deeper into the complex. The path continues ever onward, beckoning you to follow. The creators of this place have laid out a journey for you, a pilgrimage through their hidden world, and each stage is more wondrous and more mysterious than the last. You have passed through the antechamber of the giants, the workshop of creation, and the garden of life, and now you must continue on to whatever lies next. You pass by the glowing spring, its faint light casting shimmering reflections on the polished black stone of the circular building, and head towards the archway at the back. The air coming from the new passage feels different again. It loses the thick humidity of the fungal cavern and becomes drier and cooler, reverting to the sterile, still air of the first chambers. The transition is as abrupt as walking through a doorway from a greenhouse into an air-conditioned room. The passage beyond the archway is not a narrow crawl space, but a wide, high-ceilinged corridor, again carved from the living rock with impossible precision. The walls are smooth and black, and the floor is paved with the same dark basalt tiles you found in the small hidden square much earlier. It's a grand hallway, a formal processional route that feels like it's leading to a place of great importance. You walk down the corridor, your footsteps echoing loudly in the enclosed space. The corridor is long and perfectly straight, a tube of absolute darkness that is only pushed back by the beams of your headlamps. After about half a mile, the corridor opens up into another vast cavern, but this one is different from all the others. The scale is still immense, a colossal dome of rock, but its architecture is more complex and deliberate. The cavern is not an empty space or a natural landscape. It has been extensively modified to serve a specific purpose. It is a city, or what's left of one. The cavern is filled with a network of terraces and ledges connected by wide staircases and ramps, all carved from the cavern walls, and built into the rock of these terraces are hundreds upon hundreds of small openings, dark rectangular doorways that lead into the stone. Like the cells of a beehive, you found the living quarters, the dwelling places of the beings who worked in the great workshop. It's a silent vertical city, a necropolis of abandoned homes. You begin to explore the city, moving up one of the grand staircases to the first terrace. The steps are again uncomfortably large, built for a much longer stride than your own. The terrace is a wide flat space about 30 feet across that runs along the curve of the cavern wall. Along the back of the terrace are the dark doorways, each one a simple opening in the rock with no door or covering. You choose one at random and shine your light. Inside the interior is a simple cubicle, a small room carved out of the solid rock, about 20 feet square. The walls are smooth and bare, and the floor is flat and clean. There is no furniture, no personal belongings, no debris of any kind, just an empty stone box. It is austere and monastic in its simplicity. You check the next doorway and find the same thing, a bare empty room. You move along the terrace, checking a dozen different dwellings, and they are all identical, scrubbed clean and utterly empty. It's as if the inhabitants packed up all their belongings and left in a very orderly fashion, leaving nothing behind. The emptiness is more unsettling than if you had found skeletons or signs of a struggle. It speaks of a planned and deliberate departure, a mass exodus from this deep place. The ancient city of Amarna, the capital built by the heretic pharaoh Akhenaten, was similarly abandoned after his death, its inhabitants returning to the old capital of Thebes. This feels similar, a city built for a specific purpose, and then abandoned when that purpose was fulfilled or failed. But on a much grander and more mysterious scale, you move up to the next level of the city and find more of the same, hundreds of empty stone rooms, silent and waiting. You cross a wide stone bridge that spans the cavern, connecting two different sections of the city, and you pause in the middle to look out over the scene below. The sheer number of dwellings is staggering. There must have been thousands, if not tens of thousands of beings living here, a population large enough to build all the incredible things you have seen. The logistics of feeding and supplying such a population in this sunless environment are mind-boggling. You found no evidence of agriculture or food storage, just a fungal forest, which, while beautiful, doesn't seem like it could support such a large community. A fringe theory you've encountered suggests that some ancient monuments were built not by slaves or paid laborers, but by a hive-like society of beings dedicated to a single purpose. This city, with its uniform cell-like dwellings and its lack of personal spaces, feels very much like the home of such a society, a community of drones serving a single queen or a single idea. Historians still debate the social structure of the communities of workers who built the pyramids, whether they were slaves, conscripted farmers, or a dedicated class of skilled artisans. The evidence from the workers' village at Giza suggests a well-cared-for workforce with access to good food and medical care. This city feels different. It feels less like a home and more like a barracks, a functional place for workers to rest before returning to their great task. The uniformity is what strikes you the most. There is no variation between the dwellings, no sign of individuality or personal expression. It is a city of perfect equality and perfect conformity, which feels both utopian and deeply disturbing. You are about to move on when one of your team members calls out from one of the dwellings. She's found something. You rush over and find her shining her light on the back wall of one of the stone rooms. The wall is not bare like the others. It has a single small carving on it, a delicate and intricate pattern etched into the stone. It's not the grand heretical script from the workshop, but something much more personal. It's a drawing of a flower or species you don't recognize, with swirling petals and a complex geometric center. It's a small act of rebellion, a tiny piece of graffiti in a city of absolute uniformity, a single person's attempt to leave their mark. To say, "I was here." It's the first sign of individuality you have found in this entire complex, and it's a poignant and deeply humanizing discovery. Even if the hand that drew it wasn't human at all, it's a reminder that even in the most rigid and conformist society, the spirit of art and self-expression can find a way to bloom in the darkness. You leave the city of empty homes behind, its silent testimony to a departed populace weighing heavily on your mind. The single flower carving is a small comfort, a tiny spark of individuality in a place of overwhelming conformity, but it does little to solve the greater mystery of who these beings were and where they went. The path leads you out of the dwelling cavern through another long polished corridor that slopes gently upwards. As you walk, the silence returns, a familiar companion on this impossible journey. The air is still and cold, and the only sound is the rhythmic shuffle of your team's footsteps on the stone floor. The corridor ends not in an archway, but with a set of immense double doors made from the same dark, unidentifiable metal as the tools in the workshop. The doors are at least 50 feet high and are covered in the same complex geometric patterns you saw on the feet of the giant statue. They are closed, but not locked, and you are able to push them open with a combined effort. They swing inward without a sound on perfectly balanced hinges, revealing the chamber beyond you. Step through the doorway into a room that is architecturally breathtaking and acoustically bizarre. It is a long, high-ceilinged hall shaped like a perfect ellipse. The walls are not smooth, but are covered in a complex array of curved surfaces, alcoves, and baffles, creating a space that seems designed for a very specific sonic purpose. You are standing in a massive concert hall or a cathedral of sound. The moment you step inside, you notice the change in the acoustics. The air seems to vibrate with a low, barely audible hum, and every sound you make is transformed in a strange and unsettling way. A cough becomes a drawn-out whisper of footstep echoes, not as a sharp clap, but as a soft percussive boom that seems to roll around the curved walls of the chamber. You clap your hands together once, and the sound doesn't just echo, it lingers, it fractures into 1,000 smaller echoes that cascade through the hall, creating a complex and sustained chord that takes almost a full minute to fade into silence. It's as if the room has a memory for sound, capturing every noise and replaying it in a distorted and elongated form. This is a place of phantom echoes, a hall that never truly falls silent. You and your team stand in the center of the hall, in awe of the strange effect. The science behind it is a more advanced version of the whispering gallery you encountered in the small circular room. This hall is a massive resonator designed to trap and amplify sound waves with incredible efficiency. But to what end? Why build such a place? The mainstream historical fact is that the ancient Greeks were the pioneers of theater acoustics, designing their amphitheaters with near-perfect sightlines and sound distribution so that an actor's voice could carry to the back row without amplification. This hall takes that principle to an almost magical extreme. It doesn't just carry sound, it curates it, it transforms it into something else. As you stand in the ringing silence, you begin to hear it, faint at first, but growing clearer as you focus. It's the sound of voices, not your own, but the echoes of voices from the distant past. The hall's unique properties have somehow trapped and preserved the sound waves of ancient conversations, chants, or songs, and they are now bleeding back into the present as faint, ghostly whispers. You can't make out the words. They are a soft murmur of alien syllables, a language you don't understand, but the emotional tone is clear. It's a sound of reverence, of worship, of many voices joined together in a single purpose. You also hear other sounds, the rhythmic clang of hammers on stone, the high-pitched shriek of the giant saws, the deep grinding sound of massive blocks being moved. It's as if the entire history of the construction project is replaying itself in this hall as a complex symphony of phantom sound. It is a deeply unsettling and profoundly moving experience. You are eavesdropping on the ghosts of the past, listening to a concert that ended eons ago. A fringe theory known as stone tape theory suggests that rocks and buildings can absorb and record psychic energy or events which can then be replayed under certain conditions. While you've always dismissed this as pseudoscience, the acoustic properties of this hall create a scientifically plausible version of the same phenomenon. The room isn't haunted by ghosts, it's haunted by the physics of sound itself. You walk slowly down the length of the elliptical hall, the phantom sounds of the past swirling around you. It's a journey through a soundscape of history, a living audio museum. The hall is empty of any objects or furniture. Its only feature is its incredible shape, and its even more incredible sound. As you approach the far end of the hall, the whispering voices and the sounds of construction seem to grow louder, more focused, as if you are approaching the source of the original sound. The far end of the hall terminates in a raised dais, a stone platform that serves as a focal point for the entire chamber, and on that dais rests a single object bathed in the stark white light of your headlamps. It is a head, a colossal human-like head carved from the same pale limestone as the feet, sitting perfectly upright on the stone platform, as if it were on display in a museum, and it is looking directly at you. You stand frozen at the threshold of the dais, staring up at the colossal head. The phantom echoes of the hall seem to fade into the background, replaced by the thunderous silence of this new revelation. After searching for so long, after accepting that the rest of the statue was gone forever, here is a piece of it, a magnificent and vital piece resting in a place of honor. The head is immense, easily the size of a small house. From the base of the neck to the crown of the skull, it must be 40 feet high. It is carved from the same pale limestone as the feet, and like the feet, its condition is remarkable, preserved in the still, dry air of the hall for an unimaginable length of time. You slowly circle the dais, your light crawling over the features of the immense face. The artistry is breathtaking. It's a face that is both human and not human. The features are familiar: a nose, a mouth, 2 eyes, but the proportions are subtly different. The brow is high and wide, the cheekbones are sharp and prominent, and the chin is strong and resolute. It is a face of immense intelligence and serene authority. It is not the face of a specific pharaoh or a known Egyptian deity. It is something else, something older and more regal. The expression on the face is one of calm neutrality. The lips are set in a thin, straight line, neither smiling nor frowning. The eyes are wide and almond-shaped, and they seem to possess a profound depth. Even though they are just carved stone, they are not blank or empty. They feel watchful, intelligent, and incredibly ancient. You climb the short flight of steps onto the dais. To get a closer look, you stand directly in front of the face, small and insignificant before its placid gaze. You can see the fine details of the carving now, the subtle lines around the eyes, the gentle curve of the nostrils, the incredible smoothness of the skin like stone. The surface is not covered in the geometric patterns you saw on the feet. It is pure and unadorned, except for a single symbol carved into the center of the forehead. It is a perfect circle, a symbol you've seen before on the small pottery shard you found in the debris field, the symbol for Ra, the sun, but here it is rendered with a stark and powerful simplicity. This was a being of light, a solar entity of some kind. You run your hand over the cool surface of the stone chin, and you feel a faint vibration in the rock, the last remnants of the hall's lingering echoes. It's as if the statue itself is humming with a deep and ancient power. You examine the base of the neck, where the head was severed from the body. The break is clean, almost surgically precise. It's not a jagged fracture from a fall or an explosion. It's a perfect horizontal cut, as if a giant laser was used to slice it off. This confirms your earlier suspicion. The statue was deliberately and systematically dismantled. The head was not destroyed, it was preserved. It was moved here and placed on this dais as an object of reverence, or perhaps as a prisoner. The discovery of the colossal head of a statue of Ramesses II in his mortuary temple, the Ramesseum, is a famous story in archaeology. It was a massive fragment that lay on the ground for centuries, a testament to the power of a great king and the ravages of time. This is different. This head is not a ruin, it's a relic. It has been curated and displayed with purpose. You notice that the head is not completely intact. A small section of the left side of the scalp is missing, as if a piece was deliberately chipped away, and on the back of the head you find a series of deep gouges, long vertical scratches that mar the otherwise perfect surface. They look like claw marks, but on a massive scale, as if some colossal beast had tried to drag the head away. These marks tell a story of conflict, of a struggle over this sacred object. Was it rescued from the destruction in the first cavern and brought here for safekeeping, or was it taken as a trophy by the very beings who destroyed the rest of the statue? The questions multiply. With every new discovery, you step back and look at the head in its entirety, trying to process the implications. It is beautiful, powerful, and deeply enigmatic. It is the face of the being whose feet you found in the first cavern, the face of the intelligence that designed the workshop, the face of the ruler of the abandoned city. You have finally come face to face with one of the creators, and it only deepens the mystery. A fringe theory that has always intrigued you is that the Great Sphinx of Giza originally had a different head, perhaps that of a lion or the god Anubis, and was later recarved into the likeness of a pharaoh. This statue's head, however, feels like an original and definitive statement. It is the face of a being that was not trying to imitate anything else. It was simply itself. You are so focused on the face that it takes you a long time to notice something strange about its posture, its orientation. In the hall, the head is not facing the entrance of the hall where you came in. It is not positioned to look at the center of the room or at any other obvious focal point. It is tilted slightly upwards, its unblinking stone gaze fixed on a specific point on the high vaulted ceiling of the elliptical chamber. It is looking at something, and you realize, with a sudden jolt of excitement, that you have just found the next clue in this incredible subterranean puzzle. The journey is not just a linear path through caverns and corridors. It is a scavenger hunt designed by an ancient intelligence, and the statue's head is the key. The next answer is not in another room. It is up above you in the darkness. You follow the statue's gaze, your headlamp beam cutting a bright white line through the darkness of the hall towards the high ceiling. The elliptical vault is lost in the gloom hundreds of feet above you, and at first you see nothing but empty space. You and your team position your most powerful floodlights, aiming them all at the spot on the ceiling where the colossal stone eyes are eternally fixed. As the combined power of the lights floods the upper reaches of the chamber, the darkness slowly gives way, revealing the surface of the ceiling, and what is painted upon it. The sight is so unexpected and so beautiful that you all let out a collective gasp, a sound that is immediately caught and whispered back by the strange acoustics of the hall. The entire ceiling of the chamber is not bare stone. It is a mural, of vast and breathtakingly detailed map of the night sky. The background is a deep lustrous black, a paint that seems to absorb the light itself. And on this black canvas are thousands upon thousands of stars painted with a glowing phosphorescent mineral that shines with its own inner light. It is a perfect celestial sphere, a planetarium from a forgotten world. You are looking at a star map more detailed and more extensive than any you have ever seen. It is not just the familiar constellations of the zodiac or the patterns visible from the northern hemisphere. It is a complete map of the heavens, showing stars and galaxies from both the northern and southern skies with incredible precision. You can make out the familiar shape of Orion, the curve of the Big Dipper, the smudge of the Andromeda Galaxy. But there are other constellations too, unfamiliar patterns and clusters of stars that you don't recognize at all. It is a map of the sky as seen from Earth, but it is also more than that. You move back down from the dais to get a wider view of the entire ceiling. The elliptical shape of the hall means that the star map is distorted in a strange and beautiful way, stretched and curved to fit the vaulted ceiling. The effect is dizzying and immersive, as if you were standing inside a celestial egg. The ancient Egyptians were accomplished astronomers. Their calendar was based on the heliacal rising of the star Sirius, and they aligned their pyramids and temples with incredible precision to celestial events. The Dendera zodiac, a famous bas-relief from a temple in Upper Egypt is a beautiful example of their celestial mapping, showing the familiar signs of the zodiac and various constellations. But this star map, this is something else entirely. The Dendera zodiac is a symbolic and astrological map. This is a scientific and navigational chart. The level of detail is what is most stunning. You can see star clusters, nebulae, and distant galaxies, rendered with a precision that should be impossible without the aid of powerful telescopes. The creators of this map had a knowledge of the cosmos that was thousands of years ahead of its time. You use the zoom lens on your camera to get a closer look at some more from the details, and you see that the map is not static. The stars are not just simple points of light. Many of them are connected by fine glowing lines, creating complex geometric patterns that look like navigational routes or energy conduits, and some stars are circled or marked with specific symbols from the heretical script you saw in the workshop. It's a map that is not just showing where things are, but how to get to them. It is a galactic subway map, a chart of interstellar highways. A quirky but persistent fringe idea is that the layout of the Giza pyramids is a terrestrial map of the three stars in Orion's belt, known as the Orion correlation theory. While mainstream archaeology largely rejects this idea, the celestial map seems to be showing a similar principle, but on a much grander scale. It's a map that connects the heavens to the earth, or in this case to a place deep beneath the earth. As you continue to scan the map, following the stone statue's gaze, you see that its eyes are not just looking at the ceiling in general. They are focused on one very specific point. One star system among the thousands is marked differently from all the others. It is not just circled or annotated. It is rendered in a different color, of a vibrant pulsating red that stands out from the cool blue and white of the other stars. It is the destination. It is the focal point of the entire map. The statue is looking at this red star with a silent and eternal longing. And then you see the most incredible detail of all. A faint glowing line connects this red star system directly to another star system, a system that you recognize instantly. It is a small yellow star with a familiar retinue of planets orbiting it, one of which is marked with a tiny blue. Our sun, our solar system, our home. The map is a direct and unambiguous statement. It is a line drawn between our world and theirs. The creators of this place were not from Earth. They were from a distant star system marked in red on the celestial chart, and they came here for a reason. You feel a profound sense of vertigo, a feeling of cosmic displacement. The history you thought you knew, the history of humanity on this small blue planet, is just a tiny footnote in a much larger galactic story. You are not the sole inhabitants of a universe, and you never have been. Historians still debate the meaning of the so-called Amjuat, an important ancient Egyptian funerary text that details the journey of the sun god Ra through the underworld during the 12 hours of the night. The Amjuat is a complex and symbolic map of a subterranean realm. You realize now that you are in a literal Amjuat, a real underworld, and its map is not of a mythical realm, but of the real cosmos. The gaze of the statue is your guide. The star map is your key, and the red star is your destination. You don't know what it means yet, but you know that the final answer to this incredible mystery lies in following that line, in understanding the connection between the red star and our own. And you have a feeling that the answer is waiting for you in the next and perhaps final chamber of this impossible place. The revelation of the star map changes everything. It recontextualizes the entire complex from a terrestrial mystery into a cosmic one. This place is not just a forgotten chapter of Earth's history. It's an embassy, a colony, or a forgotten outpost from another world. The silence in the Hall of Echoes feels different now, less like the silence of abandonment and more like the silence of deep space, the vast and patient quiet between the stars. You and your team are energized by the discovery, a new sense of purpose driving you forward. The star map is not just a pretty picture, it's a guide, it's a puzzle, and it's pointing the way. You begin to search the hall for a mechanism, an exit, a doorway that corresponds to the information on the ceiling. You scan the walls of the elliptical chamber looking for any seam or switch or hidden panel, that might be activated by this new knowledge. The walls are smooth and seamless, a continuous curve of the strange sound-reflecting stone. You run your hands over the surface, looking for any irregularity, any clue that you've missed, but there is nothing. The Hall of Echoes appears to be a dead and a beautiful and enigmatic final resting place for the colossal head, but that doesn't feel right. The entire complex has been a journey, a linear progression from one revelation to the next. It doesn't make sense for it to end here in a room with a map that points to a destination, but provides no door to get there. You return to the dais and stand before the serene and powerful face of the stone head. Its gaze is still fixed on the ceiling, on the connection between the red star and our own sun. You follow its line of sight again, tracing the path from its eyes to the glowing mural above, and then you notice something you hadn't seen before. The spot on the ceiling representing our solar system is not just a static painting, it's a lens, a circular piece of polished crystal embedded in the ceiling that seems to concentrate the faint light of the phosphorescent mural, and directly below it on the floor of the hall is a small circular inlay of a different kind of stone, a darker, more metallic rock set flush with the floor. It's a target, a focal point created by the geometry of the room, the statue's gaze, and the map on the ceiling. It's a lock, and you've just found the keyhole. One of your team members has a powerful laser pointer, a tool used for surveying and pointing out features at a distance. You have an idea, a long shot, but one that seems to fit the theatrical and scientific nature of this place. You ask him to stand on the dais and aim the laser directly into the unblinking stone eyes of the colossal head. He does so, and a bright red that appears on the polished surface of the statue's eye. The stone itself seems to absorb the light for a moment, and then something incredible happens. A thin beam of red light shoots out from the statue's eyes, a perfect coherent beam that follows its line of sight and strikes the crystal lens on the ceiling representing our solar system. The lens refracts the laser light and projects it down onto the circular inlay on the floor, creating a perfect circle of red light on the target. The ancient Egyptians were masters of using light in their architecture. On certain days of the year, sunlight would penetrate deep into temples to illuminate a specific statue or alter a phenomenon known as a hierophany, or a manifestation of the divine. This is a technological version of the same principle, a light-based key for a lock of cosmic proportions. For a moment, nothing happens. The red circle of light glows on the floor, and the hall remains silent, and still you feel a pang of disappointment, thinking your idea has failed. But then you hear a low grinding sound, a deep resonant hum that seems to come from the very rock beneath your feet. The circular inlay on the floor begins to descend into the ground, revealing itself to be the top of a massive cylindrical pillar. A spiral staircase winds its way down around the central pillar, leading into a new chamber below. You have found the final door, a secret passage hidden in plain sight, revealed only by following the gaze of the forgotten god and using light to connect the stars. A quirky fringe belief posits that some ancient sites are located on ley lines, invisible lines of terrestrial energy, and that these sites can be activated by certain celestial alignments. You have just performed a similar activation, not with mystical energy, but with observable science and geometry, and it has opened a way to the final secret of this place. You stand at the edge of the newly revealed opening, looking down the spiral staircase into the darkness below. The air that rises from the opening is cold and carries a faint scent of ozone, the smell of ancient and powerful machinery. You have followed the breadcrumbs left by the star travelers. You have solved their puzzles, and you have opened their final door. The only thing left to do is to descend into the darkness one last time and see what secret they guarded so carefully at the heart of their subterranean world. The journey is almost over, and you have a feeling that the answer to everything is waiting for you at the bottom of these stairs. The descent down the spiral staircase is a slow and deliberate affair. The steps are made of the same dark metallic stone as the doors to the Echo Hall, and they feel cool and solid under your boots. The central pillar they wind around is a smooth, seamless cylinder that hums with a low latent energy that you can feel in the soles of your feet. It's a sound and a feeling of immense power held in reserve. A sleeping giant of a machine, the staircase is long, plunging deep into the rock below the Hall of Echoes. As you descend, the light from the chamber above fades, and you are once again reliant on your headlamps to pierce the oppressive darkness. The air grows colder, and the scent of ozone becomes more pronounced, a clean, sterile smell that reminds you of a high-tech laboratory or a power station. After what feels like 1,000 steps, you reach the bottom and step out into the final chamber. The room is not a vast cavern like the others. It is a relatively small and intimate space, a perfect cube, about 100 feet on each side. The walls, the floor, and the ceiling are all made of a single seamless piece of polished black obsidian, a volcanic glass, so dark and reflective that it creates the illusion of infinite space. You shine your light around the room, and your beam is reflected back from a dozen different angles, creating a dizzying hall of mirrors effect that disorients you for a moment. The chamber is almost entirely empty. There are no artifacts, no inscriptions, no machinery, just the perfect black reflective surfaces of the walls. But the center of the room is not empty. In the exact geometric center of the obsidian cube sits a single object, the final focus of this entire immense complex, a throne. It is a massive throne carved from a single block of the same polished black obsidian as the room itself. It is a piece of stark and brutalist artistry. Its lines are sharp and geometric. Its form is one of uncompromising power and authority. The throne is immense, easily large enough to seat the being whose colossal head you saw in the hall above. The seat is wide and deep. The back is high and straight, and the armrests are thick, solid blocks of stone. It is not a throne designed for comfort. It is a throne designed for command. It is the seat of a king, a god, or a galactic emperor. The most famous throne in Egyptian history is the golden throne of Tutankhamun, a masterpiece of woodworking and decorative art covered in gold and precious stones. This throne is the antithesis of that. It is not decorated. It is not ornate. Its power comes not from what has been added to it, but from its own perfect and monolithic form, its absolute blackness that seems to absorb all light and all hope. But the throne is empty. It sits in the center of the silent black room, a monument to an absence, a symbol of a power that is no longer present. The king has left the building, and he's not coming back. You approach the throne slowly, your footsteps silent on the polished obsidian floor. You run your hand over its surface. It is cold as ice and smooth as still water. There are no signs of wear, no scratches, no imperfections. It is as if it was created yesterday, or as if it has never been sat in at all. This is the heart of the mystery, the center of the labyrinth, and it is an empty room with an empty chair. It is a profoundly anticlimactic and deeply unsettling discovery. You have followed the clues, you have solved the puzzles, you have journeyed through a world of impossible wonders, and your reward is this: a void, a vacuum, a question mark made of stone. You were expecting an answer, a revelation, a final piece of the puzzle that would make everything clear. Instead, you have found the ultimate enigma, an empty seat of power. Historians still debate the purpose of the so-called serdab, a sealed chamber in ancient Egyptian tombs that contained a statue of the deceased. It was believed that the ka, or life force of the dead person, could inhabit the statue and look out at the world through small openings in the wall. This room feels like a serdab on a cosmic scale, a place for a great power to reside. But the spirit has long since departed, leaving only an empty vessel behind. As you stand before the empty throne, you notice a faint light emanating from the ceiling directly above it. You look up and see a single glowing red star painted on the black obsidian, a perfect replica of the destination star from the map in the hall above it. Is the only point of color in the entire black room, and it casts a faint bloody glow on the empty seat below. This is the final piece of the story. The being who sat on this throne was from that red star system. They came here, they built this incredible complex, they created wonders, and then they left, and this room, this empty throne under the light of a distant star, is their final statement, their farewell note written in the language of architecture and absence, a strange fringe belief, sometimes called the Zoo hypothesis suggests that extraterrestrial intelligences are aware of us, but deliberately avoid contact, choosing to observe us from a distance, as if we were animals in a zoo. This room feels like the opposite of that. It feels like the zookeeper's office after the zoo has been closed down and all the animals have been set free. The purpose of this place, whatever it was, is over. You have reached the end of the line. The story is finished, and the final page is blank. You and your team stand in silence in the dark reflective room, looking at the empty throne. The weight of the discovery, the sheer scale of the history, and the profound emptiness at its heart is almost too much to bear. You have found proof of life beyond Earth, but you have also found proof of its departure. You are alone again, not just in this cave, but in a much larger cosmic sense. The gods have left the mountain, and they're not coming back. There's nothing more to see here in the silent heart of the world. The story ends with an empty chair. You turn away from the throne, and the single red star that glows above it, a final silent statement that you will never fully understand. The journey back begins. The long walk home. You and your team gather at the base of the spiral staircase, sharing a look of profound exhaustion and unspoken awe. There are no words to summarize what you have seen. There will be no easy report to write about this, no simple explanation for the history books. This is the kind of discovery that breaks history itself. Your presentation at the next archaeology symposium is going to be interesting. You begin the slow ascent up the winding stairs, leaving the chamber of the empty throne to its eternal quiet. The low hum of the central pillar fades as you climb, and you are once again enveloped in the familiar silence of the deep earth. You emerge back into the hall of phantom echoes, and the room greets you with its strange chorus of captured sounds. The whispers and clangs of the past feel different now, not so much a haunting as a memorial, a final fading recording of a civilization's grand project. You walk past the colossal head on its dais, and its serene expression seems less about authority now and more about a deep and abiding sadness. It is a lonely king looking forever at a home he can never return to, and you feel a pang of empathy for this being of stone and starlight. You don't linger. You pass through the great metal doors and into the long corridor that leads back to the city of the workers. The journey is a reversal, a rewinding of the tape. Each chamber you pass through is now imbued with the knowledge of what lies at the center. The city of empty dwellings feels more poignant than before. Each silent stone room a testament to a life that was lived in service to a grand and ultimately unfinished idea. You think of the single flower carved on the wall, a tiny spark of personal identity in this city of conformity, and you hope that whoever carved it found some peace at the end of their journey. You traverse the fungal cavern, the great subterranean garden of glowing life. The soft blue and green light feels comforting now, a gentle farewell from this hidden world. You cross the silent black lake one last time, the eyeless fish swimming in the depths below like pale ghosts waving goodbye. You pass through the workshop, and the colossal tools and half-finished monoliths seem like tragic monuments to a dream that died. The sheer ambition of the place is still breathtaking, but it's now tinged with the melancholy of failure. It's the most magnificent project that was never completed. You navigate the whispering tunnels, and the strange acoustic effects no longer feel menacing. They are just a breath of the mountain, the sigh of the deep earth. Historians still argue whether ancient Egyptian tomb builders felt genuine fear of the spirits they were entombing, or if their elaborate rituals were just part of the job. You feel you have a bit more sympathy for their position now, having walked through these whispering halls yourself. You emerge back into the first great cavern, the immense chamber where your journey began, and you see them in the distance, the two colossal feet standing firm in the black sand. They look different now that you have seen the face that belongs to them. They are no longer just an impossible anomaly. They are the anchor points, the last physical connection of a fallen god to this world, the foundation of a temple whose spire once reached for the stars. You trudge across the endless sand, your boots making the only sound in the vast chamber. You reach the ropes that still hang from the entrance, high above a thin silver thread connecting this world of shadows to the world of light. The final ascent begins. You clip in and begin the slow, laborious climb up the rope, leaving the giant feet to their eternal vigil. The climb is exhausting. Your muscles ache and your mind is numb with the sheer weight of what you've experienced. You feel like a psychopomp in reverse, not guiding a soul to the underworld, but carrying the soul of the underworld back up to the world of the living. A story so immense it might shatter the minds of those who hear it. The ancient Egyptians had their book of the dead, a scroll of spells and maps to help the deceased navigate the perils of the underworld. You had no such guide, yet you feel you have successfully navigated a realm far stranger than any they imagined. The rectangle of gray light above you grows larger with every pull on the rope, the promise of fresh air and open sky pulling you upward. You finally haul yourself over the ledge and back onto the desert floor of the world. You know the transition is breathtaking. You collapse onto the rock, breathing in the cool night air of the Egyptian desert. It tastes sweet and real and alive. Above you, the sky is a vast canopy of familiar stars, a comforting and beautiful sight. After so long in the enclosed blackness, the wind blows gently, carrying the scent of sand and time. The sun will rise in a few hours, but you know it will never look the same again. You have been to the heart of the world and seen a secret that was never meant to be found. The journey is over, but the knowledge of what lies beneath the sand will be with you forever. You have walked in the halls of the star travelers, and the silence of their departure is the loudest sound in the universe. The long journey back is over, and you are safe now under the wide and silent desert sky. The impossible world you discovered has been left to its quiet slumber, a secret once more concealed by the earth. You can feel the first hints of dawn on the horizon, a soft purple line that promises the warmth and light of a new day. The stars begin to fade one by one, retreating before the coming sun as you sit on the cool rock, trying to process the immensity of the story you now carry within you. The cold of the deep places still clings to your bones, but it will fade with the morning light. The silence of the empty throne will echo in your memory for a long time, but it is a distant echo, now muffled by the gentle sounds of the waking desert. The world you have returned to seems both unchanged and irrevocably different. A familiar stage on which an unbelievable drama has been played out unseen for eons. As the first rays of sunlight crest the dunes and touch your face, you feel a sense of profound peace. The mystery is not solved, not really, but it has been witnessed, and that is enough. You have borne witness to a story of gods and giants, of starlight and stone, and now it is a part of you, a quiet hum beneath the surface of your own small life. So let the warmth of that rising sun soothe you now. Let the memory of the deep dark places soften and fade into the background of your mind. Allow your thoughts to grow heavy, your breathing to deepen as you drift away from the sands of Egypt and into the gentle landscape of your own dreams. There are no more tunnels to crawl through, no more mysteries to solve. There is only the soft and quiet comfort of rest. Sleep now, sleep deeply and peacefully, knowing that the greatest wonders of the universe are the ones we carry inside us, safe and sound until a new day dawns.